Good morning. You know the meaning of good morning now. Okay, I found that unfortunately we don't have much time because tomorrow is Sunday, the next 2 days, Ngemba Gunzom and Sangbuchunzom, which means 3 days. So today's 4th, I'm 5th, 6th, 7th, no class. Then 8th class, okay. Then on 18th I'm leaving, so I plan to finish it on 16th. Because on 18th I'm leaving. Anyway. So, yesterday we were reading verse number 4, to give my body, my resources, and the good deeds that I have cultivated in the 3 times to all sentient beings and to protect and develop them. Here is a summary of the Bodhisattva vows. So that verse tells about the Bodhisattva vows, a summary. Because the practices of a Bodhisattva are included within the practice of the 6 perfections. So that you need to know. First you cultivate the mind, wishing to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And then having cultivated that mind, you need to live the Bodhisattva way of life. That means practicing the Bodhisattva vows, which has many, but it could be summarized into the practice of the 6 perfections. Okay, those are the Bodhisattva practices. So the practice of the 6 perfections are fulfilled or content in these 12 practices of generosity, protection, purification, and development of the 3. Clear, huh? Life, resources, and good deeds. If these 3 things, if you give, protect, purify, develop, then this 12-fold practices contain the practice of the 6 perfections. For example, in the case of the practice of giving, generosity, the 3 practices of generosity are to give our body, resources, good deeds. Give our body doesn't mean that you let your body misused by others, okay? It means use your body, speech and mind in the service of others. Okay. So the Bodhisattvas have dedicated everything for others' well-being. So therefore a true Bodhisattva does not own anything, in a sense. Everything is for others. And that's the beauty of the practice, because when you own so many things, that's the source of all the problems actually. And therefore in Buddhism, this negative ego, the self-grasping, is said to be the root cause of all the problems. And it primarily talks about 2 kinds of very strong negative emotions. One is self-cherishing attitude, ranchenzi, and another is called self-grasping, which is called dangzin or denjin. So these 2 really are the kind of sworn enemy. So self-cherishing attitude hinders and obstructs us in cultivating bodhicitta, because you don't care about others' well-being, but just get obsessed with oneself. I, me and mine at the most. I, me and mine, that small circle. You get bogged down there. So that hinders you in developing that aspiration to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So that is the self-cherishing attitude. Self-cherishing attitude does not mean that you should not care about yourself. But self-cherishing attitude means, yes, you should care about yourself, but not to the extent of completely ignoring the well-being of others. So self-cherishing attitude means, while you think about yourself, do things for yourself, you completely ignore the needs of others. You concentrate only for your well-being, for your purposes. And does not care at all about others' needs. So that is called self-cherishing attitude. That's a disease actually. Then the second great disease is self-grasping, which means to see all phenomena as having independent, intrinsic existence. So that obstructs developing the wisdom, understanding emptiness or shunyata. So these two are the real enemy. They are the bosses of all the negative emotions. And these two negative evil forces, where are they? They are in the headquarters of your mind. That's the problem. You see, your headquarters is already captured by these two, generals of the negative emotions. Self-cherishing attitude is here, since time immemorial. And then self-grasping, seeing everything as having inherent independent existence, that is also there. So so long as these two generals are there in the headquarters of our mind, then all other negative emotions, like attachment, anger, jealousy, all these negative emotions are bound to come. So therefore, for a Buddhist practitioner, the target now is to act against these negative emotions in general, and especially against the self-cherishing attitude and the self-grasping mind. So therefore, many of the great Kadampa masters, they say that I have only one job to do, only one work to do. That only one job is to fight against these negative emotions. And in fact, they make very precise statements by saying that if these negative emotions relax, I can relax. If these negative emotions do not relax, I cannot relax. So you always watch against these negative emotions like anger, jealousy, attachment, and so forth. So that is the only duty. That's the only job of a practitioner. Because as one of the sutras says, that these afflictive emotions destroy you, destroy others. Negative emotions destroy your morality, your peace, your happiness. So they are the real enemy. But interestingly or unfortunately, we never make an attempt to understand and recognize these negative emotions as enemy. Instead, we are very fond of pointing an enemy that is outside of us. That person is a hijacker. That person is a terrorist. But if you look carefully, these negative emotions that are within yourself, they are the ones that hijacks your life. They are the real terrorists. They are the real enemies. So therefore, Buddhist practice in general, and especially in the Bodhisattva practice, it is extremely important to remain alert whether these negative emotions are coming or not. If they are coming, then you should say, okay, enough is enough. Enough is enough. The time that you have cheated me is gone now. The time you have destroyed me is gone now. In those past days, I have no idea. I did not meet with Dharma. I did not meet with great teachers. So I have no idea. I took it for granted. These negative emotions are part of my life. And I took it for granted. They are important in my life. You see? And we took it for granted. These negative emotions are necessary in our life. Now you are able to clearly see that the actual nature of the mind, the fundamental nature of the mind is clear light. It is peaceful, it is calm, it is not agitated. But the turbulence in the mind comes into being because of these negative emotions. So now I know who you are. You need to personify these negative emotions. If there is a person, somebody who has really mistreated you, then as and when you see this person, you get angry. I know who you are. This is how you treated me. Now I'm not going to be fooled again. Now you can't cheat me again. That's how we react, you see. So you should take a similar stance when you deal with these negative emotions. In the past, because of having no knowledge, no awareness, as I said, you took these negative emotions as part of your life. And you always allowed them to come in your mind. As and when they wanted. They enjoyed, they relaxed. They were holidaying in your mind. Your doors and windows of your mind is completely open. And whenever anger is coming, says, please come, welcome, my dear old friend anger, my dear old friend attachment, my dear old friend jealousy. Please come. We are old friend, please come, Now you understood how destructive these negative emotions are. So you need to remain alert. Remain alert. That's the problem. Human beings do not remain alert. Look at the birds, They do not have sophisticated minds like us. But in order to protect their body, look at the birds, they are very alert. Just watch one bird, sitting on a twig or a branch. They're all like this, to make sure, because they don't have sophisticated intelligence, therefore they need to, their physical structure is such that they need to remain alert. Look at the wild animals, As and when they hear slight sound, immediately they raise their ears and they're ready to run, you see. And the good thing with these birds and animals is, as and when they want, they can run. They have no houses to lose, they have no belongings to lose, they have no money to lose. So there are good things there also. But in our case, unless we use our human intelligence and remain alert, physically we are not as alert as these animals and birds. But unfortunately we are misusing our human intelligence. Instead of using it on the constructive side, we are using it on the destructive side. That's why we are drowning more and more into the quagmire of suffering, afflictive emotions. So in a sense, it is our own doing. We cannot blame anybody. It's our own doing. So therefore, the purpose of such Buddhist practice is to clearly identify these negative emotions and remain alert and make a commitment and promise to say, okay, I used to get angry very often. Now I know how destructive the anger is. Now I am not going to give any opportunity to you. Of course, it is not easy. You just can't make a statement and then from that day onwards, the anger doesn't come. It will not happen like that. But you need, if you make that persistent effort with a clear recognition how destructive these negative emotions are, then gradually, you can distance yourself. First of all, distance yourself from the influence of these negative emotions. At least make sure that they are not coming. You may not have the capacity to fight against them. You may not have the capacity to develop the counter forces, but at least make sure that they do not invade your whole being. Then, just like wounded animals, you see. If you look at the wounded animals, when they are wounded, they normally don't try to fight because they know their weakness. They go hide somewhere, make sure they are healed, their physical strength is regained. Then after that they come and fight. See. So therefore, as I said the other day, that these negative emotions destabilizes us. They make us vulnerable, they make us weak. And we do not want to become weak. Weak in terms of your own personal capacity, weak in terms of what you want to do for your country, weak in terms of what you want to do for the well-being of the whole world. When we have these negative emotions widely prevalent within us, then we see all these multifarious, unfortunate happenings throughout the world. So the only solution is changing the attitude, transforming ourselves, and thereby we can make our own life happier, the life of the family happier, the life of the society happier. There's the only way, there's the only solution. There's no other shortcut. Even in the case of many people who do a little bit of thinking, not necessarily following Buddhism, through their own research, investigation, inquiry, they are now finding the importance of these positive emotions. The scientists are now talking about the importance of positive emotions for your health, physical and mental health. Philosophers are talking about it. If you read the works of Aristotle or Socrates, in those ancient times, they all spoke about these things. So what we are talking about in Buddhism is a perennial philosophy, a universal knowledge, relevant to everybody, believer or non-believer. It's basically a spirituality. And therefore it is extremely important to recognize the fact that this knowledge that is found in Buddhism is a must one. It's an absolutely necessary one, not a luxurious item. So, in the case of practice of generosity, the three practices of generosity are to give our body, resources, and good deeds. So this contains the practice of giving. Out of the 6 perfections, when we talk about giving, so it talks about giving your life in the service of others, giving whatever you have earned, resources to others. And your good deeds, whatever good deeds you do in your daily life, new ideas you get, virtuous qualities you develop. And having developed and practiced these good qualities, do not become arrogant. Instead, you should immediately dedicate it for the benefit of all sentient beings. Dedicate it by saying that may this good deed that I have done become a cause to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And if you do that, then the good deeds that you have done will never be lost. It is like depositing your money in the bank. Not only it will not be lost, but you might get some interest. Okay? Because it is very important to, as and when you do something good, then having completed that good deed, you should rejoice, be happy, and think that today I have really made my life meaningful. Today I have really made my day meaningful, and dedicate it for the benefit of all sentient beings. Protection. The two practices of protection are guarding the 3 gateways, body, speech, and mind, from fresh moral corruption, the physical purification of evil deeds. This contains the practice of morality also. Out of the 6 perfections, morality basically is of 3 types. The first is called restraining your senses. So guarding the 3 gateways basically means restraining the 3 gateways, body, speech, and mind, and make sure that you do not engage in, fresh moral corruption or wrongdoings. So therefore, when we engage in meditation, one of the preparations for meditation is to restrain the senses. And then second, the physical purification of deeds. This number 3 is, I think, wrong. This is only 2. So this contains the practice of morality of the 6 perfections. So morality basically, in Buddhism, the word morality, or even if you use the word ethical discipline or morality, whichever word you want to use, the Buddhist concept of morality and discipline has no connotation of you are doing something because it has been imposed upon yourself by some external force. If you use the word discipline, but at least in the context of the Buddhist morality, there is no connotation of you are doing something because it has been imposed upon you by some superior or a leader. Okay? So morality basically means restraining doing negative things. That is one morality. The first kind of morality, restraining from doing negative things. That's good, that's wonderful, but that's not enough. You also need to cultivate positive qualities. So second kind of morality is cultivating positive qualities. That is second type of morality. That is also good, but that's still not enough. why you are restraining the negative afflictive emotions, and why you are cultivating the positive emotions, to help other sentient beings. So helping other sentient beings is the third kind of morality. Okay? So Buddhist morality basically is talking about three types of practices: restraining negative deeds, cultivating positive emotions, and helping others. So morality basically means a proper way of life. Proper way of life is a life where you do not harm others, where you help others, where you do good things. That's Buddhist concept of morality. Purification. In the case of the purification of the body, purification in terms of elimination of delusions can be understood in three ways: the nature of the antidote, contributing factors of the cultivation of the antidote, the elimination of the antidote's obstructing factors. So now if I refer again back to the verse, when it says to give my body, my resources and good deeds that I have cultivated in the three times, that is talking about practice of giving. Out of the six perfections, that first line is talking about to give my body, my resources and good deeds that I have cultivated in the three times, that is talking about practice of generosity, practice of giving. The next line, to all sentient beings and to protect. And to protect, that is talking about morality. That's talking about morality. If you protect yourself from engaging in negative deeds, that is, as I explained earlier, is the first kind of practice of morality. So, in the case of the purification of the body, purification in terms of the elimination of delusions. Now, when we talk about purification, if you especially talk about purification in terms of elimination of negative emotions, delusions, then it should be understood in three ways. That means, how would you purify yourself? In this case, first you need to understand the nature of the antidote. In order to purify the negative emotions, what kind of antidote you should cultivate? What is the nature? So when we talk about this, then this contains the practice of the concentration and wisdom, because it is the concentration which acts against the manifestation of afflictive emotions. If any negative emotions manifest, then through one-pointed concentration you will be able to suppress it, but it will not have the power to eliminate it from the root. So to eliminate it from the root, you need to cultivate wisdom. So therefore, when we talk about the nature of the antidote, we are talking about the practice of concentration, wisdom of the six perfections. So in other words, this one verse is talking about all the practice of all the six perfections in a summary, in a nutshell. Okay. Then second, contributing factors for the cultivation of the antidote. What are the contributing factors? Because you need to cultivate those antidotes. What is it that can contribute towards it? So the second contains the practice of effort. The one that would contribute to the development of concentration wisdom is by making effort. By not becoming lazy. If you remain lazy, you can't cultivate concentration, you can't cultivate wisdom. So therefore, in order to cultivate them, you need to make effort. So contributing factors here refers to cultivation of effort. So this talks about the practice of effort of the six perfections. And the third, the elimination of the antidotes, obstructing factors. The third requires the practice of patience. It's not enough that you make some effort, especially if the effort is short-lived, then you will not be able to achieve anything. As Kongtan Tenpa in one of his texts says, then in the first few days you get so interested in the Dharma practice that you even forget to take food and make effort. And as soon as you start doing the Dharma practice, you long to get enlightened. Push button enlightenment. And after 3 days, you forget everything, and there is no trace of your practice. And such a person, such a practitioner, will not get anything. Therefore, you should undertake your Buddhist practice just like a running stream. In the case of a running stream, the running stream will never say that it is day, therefore I will run. Now it is night, I will not run, I will stop and sleep. It will never say that. It just continues. It continues. The flow continues. So similarly, we should, in terms of our practice, it should be continuous. It should be continuous. So in order to undertake that practice continuous, you need to have patience. You need to have patience. And Shantideva in his Bodhicharyavatara clearly says, patience is a must. Because not only in Buddhist practice, but even in ordinary life, and he says how hard the fisherman has to bear the hardship. If he has no patience, he will not be able to catch any fish. He has to sit by the bank of the river the whole day, hoping that he will be able to catch few fish. And look at the farmers, whether it's scorching heat, or whether it's raining, whatever, the farmer has to cultivate the field. So he has to persevere and be patient. So therefore, it is extremely important to have patience. And especially in terms of Dharma practice, it is not that difficult. We don't have to sit in scorching heat or in the rain. We can at least sit comfortably in the room, do the reflection and thinking. So comparatively, it is much, much more comfortable and easier. And more than that, if we remain patient and make effort in the Dharma practice, then there is a possibility that you travel from peace to peace, happiness to happiness. There is a guarantee that you will be able to get reliable, long-lasting peace and happiness through this pursuit. Not in the case of the ordinary worldly pursuits. Whatever you get, that is ephemeral. That is not long-lasting. That is not going to give you reliable satisfaction and peace. So therefore, one should undertake the practice of effort and patience. And especially in today's world, with so much distractions, if you don't have some kind of patience, then it may be quite difficult for you to survive in this world. Even when you drive in a busy city, if you don't have the patience, when you are caught in that traffic jam, if you don't have the patience, I've seen this in the case of many people. There's no way he or she can move his or her car because there are so many cars in front of him or her, but still that person is just getting mild, then honking and getting angry. So what is the use of such impatience, you see? So the patience is a must. Especially patience, especially if you have greater power or greater wealth, if you are in a higher position, then patience is especially important. Okay? When you are already bullied by somebody who is much, much more powerful than you, then because you are in a situation that you can't do anything, then at that situation, even if you say, I'm practicing patience, that's not genuine patience, because there's not much other alternative but to submit and yield, But if you are in a higher position, a more privileged position, but still someone who is much, much lower than you does something that is distasteful or not to your liking. So under such a situation, if you remain patient, then that is the real test of practice of patience. The two practices of purification of resources and good deeds, and the three practices of development of body, resources and good deeds, distinguish the six perfections. Distinguish means they make your practice of the six perfections very special because of having purified your practice. For example, purification of resources makes generosity distinctive. Purification of resources. What do we mean by purification of resources? It's not so clearly explained here, but I think it primarily means that you should undertake all these practices without any grasping. Without any grasping. For example, if you are giving something, let us say this is a $1 million check, so I'm going to give it to you. So then normally you develop that grasping towards three things. I am the giver. I am the great benefactor. You develop that strong grasping to yourself. And this is the 1 million check I'm going to give. You have grasping on this. And then you are the one who is going to get it. And you develop grasping to the object. So one should not develop that kind of grasping without grasping, seeing everything like a dream, like an illusion. As I said already, that these two negative emotions, self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping, they are the sworn enemy. So self-grasping means seeing things as having inherent independent existence. Because when you see anything as having inherent independent existence, that intensifies, strengthens your negative emotions. That's the reason. That's the reason. For example, if I like this tablecloth, not only I like it, but if I see this tablecloth as having inherent existence from its own side, meaning that if I see this cloth 100% nice, 100% beautiful, the beauty is from its own side, then I develop very strong obsession. I must have it. This is perfect. There's no fault in this. Be it a person, be it an object. When you see that object, that person as having independent, inherent existence, then you tend to exaggerate that object. That person or that object obviously has many limitations, many faults, but you will not be able to see that. Because you thought that that beauty is intrinsic, existing from its own side. So as a result, you will be completely carried away when you see that object. Wow, this is so beautiful. You get completely lost it. You get completely obsessed into it. Getting obsessed with that object means you get completely sucked by that object. You get drawn into that object. You see? And again, that makes you weak, destabilizes you, you see. You get stuck there. We are not, in Buddhism, what we are talking about is getting freedom, not getting stuck somewhere, you see. So in this process, you get stuck there. Similarly, if you see somebody who you dislike and hate, say your enemy, then again, because you dislike that thing called enemy, you again tend to see this person's negativeness as intrinsic, horrible, 100% negative. This Chinese leaders, horrible, 100% negative. I cannot have negotiation with them. I cannot have dialogue with them. They are just embodiment of evil force. You see? So where is the room for negotiation? Where is the room for dialogue, you see? It is only a person like His Holiness the Dalai Lama who is able to see the relativity of everything, who understands the teaching of the Buddha, who practices the teaching of the Buddha. Therefore, he is the one who is always talking about middle way. He is talking about having dialogue, having negotiation. You can see this, you see. But ordinary people like us, how can I talk with these devils? The more you submit to them, the more they will believe. So the only thing is use brick for brick, tit for tat. You see? That's how we ordinary people think, you see. And then end result, we can see everywhere, you see. Now the news that is going on right now is what is happening in Sudan, what's happening in Syria. Because of this short-sightedness, because of arrogance, they said only way we can solve this problem is by fighting each other, killing each other. So where are they now? Where is Syria today? What is happening in Sudan right now? You see how many millions of people are suffering in cold, homelessness. You see? And that is not to say that there are no evil people. There are evil people. Of course, there are bad people. And we need to take tough stand. That's not against Buddhist teaching. We need to tough stand. But this does not mean to say that we should not have room for negotiation, for dialogue, for reconciliation. You see? So these are like great ideas. It's very difficult to implement unless you do rigorous, sustained practice and make it part of your life, then you cannot. Only people like His Holiness, he can think about Tibet. He can think about just one small country or one small family or small nation. He thinks about the human beings also. He thinks about all sentient beings, you see. So there's plenty of room for adjustment when you see from above, you see. So there's the thing. So purification basically means not to develop grasping. And especially grasping to self, to oneself, is said to be the source of all the problems that you can think about in this world. Physical illnesses, mental sicknesses, everything. Because when you just think about yourself, develop self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping, then you only think about I, me and mine. At the most, I, me, and mine, which means your belongings and your small circle of relatives and friends. And you focus only on that. So that's, in a way, animal nature, you see. The animals can't think about the greatness of, the need of their bigger circle. They can think only about their immediate circle of family members. That's what they do. So now the question is, shall we, the intelligent human beings, also live like animals? That's a challenging question. Even if you think about this, Darwin's law of natural selection, survival of the fittest. I would say that is more applicable in the realm of animals, not so much in the realm of human beings, who is this extra human intelligence. In the case of animals, yes, survival of the fittest, they kill each other to the extent that it is beneficial to their survival. Even in the case of a lion or tiger, they would kill other animals only when they are hungry, not beyond that. So the destruction is limited. Now in the case of human beings, with this very sophisticated human intelligence, if you use this thing, the survival of the fittest, meaning that you use your human intelligence and power, machine guns, whatever, and then kill, and if you are able to destroy many things, this is practiced today in a number of countries. I do not need to name them. But that is going to just lead to complete destruction. So human beings would need to use this human intelligence in the constructive, positive way, which brings peace and happiness for all So that is the target of Buddhist practice. So for example, purification of resources makes generosity distinctive, making purification of resources. For example, if you give something, you give it because that person is in need. You give it because it is a good practice for you. It's for your own accumulation of merit, happiness, peace, and so forth. Don't give it with the hope that if I give this to him, he will one day give something back to me. So just like, for example, take yourself as an example. How many times you help yourself? You give yourself breakfast, you give yourself lunch, you give yourself dinner. But at every time, have you said thank you? You give breakfast to yourself, then oh thank you. You give lunch to yourself, oh thank you. Have you said that? No. You never expect a thank you for that. Because it's something that must be done. Therefore you've done it. Without expecting anything. So similarly, when you help others also, do it because it's something that must be done, that is important, that is necessary. Don't expect anything. And if you expect anything in return, you are in trouble already. There's not proper giving, and that is the source of another trouble. Because then you will be waiting, I have given this to him and he has not done anything to me. Maybe one day he will do it to me. You're just waiting and thinking. Then you will come up with all other negative emotions. Okay, this person is disgraceful, he never remembers my kindness. So therefore, do it because it is important. I think I always emphasize this point. Because if you are to make progress in the society, you do it with full awareness and the importance of doing their thing, and then do it. Don't do it expecting that other people will say good things about you. If I do it, then they'll say, oh, Geshe Lhakdor is so good, he's doing this, doing that. If you expect those things, you're wrong. Then on the day when people don't say anything about you, you'll stop doing that, you see. So just like taking food for yourself, whether other people are doing or not, that doesn't really matter. You will never say, other people are not eating, therefore I will not eat. Simple example. So similarly, that's the problem in the society. I always give this example. If I give a very small example, let us say this classroom is filled with tables, okay? And we need to remove these tables. Now if everybody, when they knew that the tables are to be removed, then everybody takes care of one table and, takes it outside. It's so simple, so easy. But if you don't have that sense of responsibility, at least in the case of the majority of the people in the class, and if there's only 1 or 2 persons who have that sense of responsibility, they have to work very hard, Just 1 or 2 persons having to remove all these tables, you see. So therefore, what I'm really trying to say is everybody has to have this sense of responsibility to the planet, to the whole universe. And now to the Tibetan community also, we have this wonderful religion which talks about well-being of all sentient beings. So this talking about well-being of all sentient beings should not be limited just in the reading of the text or doing something in the Tibetan community alone. If you really want to prove the greatness of this teaching, this religion, you need to a little bit go beyond the Tibetan community. Whoever is in need, because we are talking about all sentient beings. That was our prayer. So we need to show it by doing. Of course, you can start it within the Tibetan community and then slowly, wherever there is a need. So I think that is the call of the time. Otherwise, who will believe that you are somebody who is practicing this great teaching, you see? And this is indeed a very, very great teaching. There's no great teaching, greater teaching than this one, you see? Today people are talking about globalization as if it is a big thing. Even when they use the word globalization, they are not talking about the well-being of all sentient beings. They are talking about only human beings. And within human beings also, the term globalization is primarily used in the context of doing business. It's not done with the motivation to bring long-lasting peace and happiness to everybody. But in Buddhism, we are talking about well-being, long-lasting well-being and happiness of all sentient beings. So that's why His Holiness Dalai Lama repeatedly says, we are very fortunate to have such a religion, such a culture, you see. So advanced. These days people repeatedly ask me, Geshe, give a talk on the relevance of Buddhism in the 21st century. Or the connection between science and Buddhism. So I tell them that if you understand the essential points, as we discussed here also, the fundamentals of the Buddhist teaching, it's not only relevant in the 21st century, it is relevant in this world so long as we are here in this world. Just like medicine. If you ask about the relevance of medicine, medicine is relevant so long as you have physical illness. So similarly, the Buddhist teaching is relevant so long as you have this mental illness. So that is the relevance, you see. And mental illness, when we talk about mental illness, we are not talking about mental illness of the Buddhist alone. We are talking about anger, which is a widely prevalent disease all over the world, you see, which is destroying and killing millions. If you look at the conflict, the war, they are all offshoots of anger that arose in the mind of a leader, stupid leader or whatever, you see. So it all comes from anger, from hatred, from jealousy, from greed. So it's in this way you can clearly see the relevance of these teachings. For example, purification of resources makes generosity distinctive, whilst purification of the root of positive deeds, which is the antidote to the contamination of the self-cherishing attitude and the grasping of the grasping of the science of the selves means to see the things as having independent inherent existence. Science of the self means to see the self as having the sign of independent inherent existence. Make all the 6 perfections distinctive. With regard to the practice of development, the true practices of development of physical activities and strength develops the basis of the 6 perfections. So as a practitioner, it's important that you increase your physical activities. You increase your physical activities because you are hoping to benefit as many people, as many sentient beings as possible. So your activities has to be many. And then strength. Strength means not just building your muscles, but strength means to physically remain healthy. This is a so interesting teaching. So physically, mentally, you should be healthy. This will be explained in more detail in the subsequent verses. So development, there are 2 ways in which to develop the root of positive deeds, that means good deeds. So when it comes to developing or increasing the positive deeds, first your motivation or preparation should be good, developing the preparation, then actual development of virtuous deeds. But normally we talk about the preparation should be good, the actual practice should be good, and the conclusion should be good. When it comes to doing something bad, something negative, the preparation should not be there. Meaning that right in the morning, if you make a motivation, make a preparation, think, okay, I will kill this person today. That's preparation, that's motivation. Then you finally confront that person and kill, and having killed that person, instead of regret and remorse, you say, wonderful, I've done the job. I've eliminated that evil force. So having killed that person, again if you rejoice, then your negative deed becomes extremely strong. You see? So therefore, in terms of doing negative deeds, there should not be any motivation. If something accidental happens, it happens to all of us. Something accidental happens because of the situation. You are an ordinary person, somebody provoked you, on the spot you got angry, and then you harmed somebody or killed somebody. then at least after that you should feel sorry, feel regret. And then your negative deed becomes at least less heavy. Okay? So therefore, as Nagarjuna outlines in his letter to the friend, when it comes to doing good things, he says it should be like a carving on a stone. When you do something good, it should be like a carving on a stone. Whether it's developing compassion or love or wisdom, it should be like a carving on a stone. If you carve something on the stone, even when the stone breaks, still the lines will be there, the carvings will be there. It will not be easily lost. And if that is not possible, at least it should be like writing on the earth, writing on the ground. At least it will stay there for some time if you write something on the earth or ground. It should not be like writing on water. When you write something on the water, as soon as you write, it disappears. So when it comes to the development of the negative emotions, it should be like writing on water. It should be like writing on water. We do get, as I said, we do get angry, but after having got angry, you should immediately be able to forget that. Do not hold ill will or resentment within your mind. See? So normally the thing is, we are very good in remembering bad things, very bad in remembering good things. And normally I give the example that if I had let us say I have a friend who was my very close friend for the last, say, 30 years. As we say, hand and glove friend, very close friend. 30 years. It's a long, long time. Now let us say this morning, over the breakfast, we had some disagreement. 5 minutes fighting. After that, we will be able to remember that 5 minutes fighting and not the 30 years long friendship, see? So you can see how strongly we are entrenched in these negative emotions, how strong we are habituated with these negative emotions. So as a good practitioner, now what you really need to do, and hopefully you will be able to do it if you are a good practitioner, is that after having this 5 minutes fight, you should be able to go to that person. Okay, at that point you were angry, but now having your anger cool down, go to that person. If there's a need to cry, cry, no problem. And say, hug him or touch his hand, say, I'm extremely sorry. We were such wonderful friends for the last 30 years. Unfortunately, this morning we had this ugly happening. Maybe your mistake, maybe my mistake, but anyway, whatever, forget it. Say sorry, cry, weep, whatever. Then that friendship will become much, much, much more stronger. But how many of us do that? You'll just keep on remembering that 5 minutes fighting, and then you part your ways. You will refuse to talk to that person, refuse to see that person anymore. So that is strange. That's why in Buddhism we say we are strongly, strongly ingrained in these negative emotions, habituated with these negative emotions. So when we do the Buddhist practice, it's important to do away with these negative emotions like writing on water. If not, at least writing on the ground. Not like carving on the stone. So that's what has been suggested by Nagarjuna in his letter to the friend. So developing the preparation and actual development of virtuous deeds. A bodhisattva should strive to generate the continuous wish. See, continuous wish. So right in the beginning, and especially for a interested Buddhist practitioner, it is important to make effort in the initial stage. When your mind is not ready, when you don't know much about Buddhism, then make sure that you catch hold of some good books, go to some good teachers, and make effort at least for some time. Then once you are into that, once you are a little bit familiar with those things, that will inspire you to remain in that practice continuously. That's very, very important. Then you need to remind yourself, probably by writing some of these verses on the walls to remind you the importance of these practices. You can even remind yourself by saying, do you want long-lasting peace and happiness? If you want, what are the methods? Just something like that to remind yourself to do the importance of this practice. So anyway, the point is, a bodhisattva should strive to generate continuous wish, or at least the potential for such, to ceaselessly give, protect, purify, and develop one's body resources and positive deeds for the sake of all sentient beings. Take the example of a mother who has many children, say 6, 7 children. She has to continuously work. Good parents, they have to continuously work by saying that, oh, we have so many children to look after, for their health, for their wealth, for their education. You see? So similarly, bodhisattvas, they are like parents of the suffering sentient beings. Buddha is like a father of suffering sentient beings. So therefore, it is said that the Buddhas, they always think, every day they think, who is suffering today? Who is prospering today? They always think. And whoever is in need, they show the path. So, just like your parents. So therefore, the sentient beings, when we talk about sentient beings, they are just countless. Their need is countless. So therefore, you need to always continuously do the practice. Continuously do the practice. Sometimes in Buddhist practice, when we receive a tantric initiation, then the Lama suggests us to do the 6-session Guru Yoga. Of course, in the initial stage, during the ceremony, people are very excited. They repeat the formulas, mantras, whatever, as if they are going to do all those practices. Then after a few days, they will say, Geshe-la, why do we have to do this 6 times a day? Number of people asked me this question. And I was also not so sure. I thought maybe, it's important to help you remember all those things. But on a little bit more reflection, I was able to come up with a very, I think, quite good answer. So these days when people ask this question to me, then I tell them by saying, how many times you eat in a day? 5, 6 times? Definitely 3, 4 times, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So why do you have to eat so many times in a day? For my physical health. So likewise, you need to do all these practices several times for your mental health. So that's the idea, I think. The practice of morality. The body and so forth, which we have been given, should also be protected. Why? Because the body and so forth should be protected so that it can be used by sentient beings. From where will the resources come if they are not protected? What is giving if it is unusable? So that precisely means the very purpose of practice of giving is that you give something so that others are able to use it, meaning that it is beneficial to others. And if you don't protect, don't preserve your body, you don't protect or preserve your body, your resources, your good deeds, then you lose everything. Then you have nothing to give. You see? Nothing to give. And when you give nothing, then sentient beings have nothing to use, you see. And this is a wonderful example, you see. Now in the case of the Tibetan struggle also, you see. The whole question of preserving Tibetan culture comes here. If you don't preserve, what will you give to your next generation? That's why His Holiness is constantly telling us, preserve your culture, preserve your language, preserve your religion. But most of us, do we preserve our religion? Do we preserve our culture? Do we preserve our language? We make short-lived attempt here and there, but not so rigorously, to be honest. And we are very fond of joining the demonstration and saying, in Tibet we have no freedom to preserve Tibetan culture or Tibetan religion. We do this demonstration again and again. Yes, it is true, there is no freedom there. But then if somebody, asks you the question, yes, you are right, I feel very sorry that you have no freedom to preserve your culture and religion in Tibet. But do you have freedom and culture to preserve these things in India or in America or in free countries? What is your answer? Of course you have to say, yes, we have freedom. Then why you are not doing it? As simple as that, you see. As simple as that. So much of the sufferings that we experience may be partly due to others, but primarily because of your own weakness. Your own not being able to do it. How long the Tibetans will remain united? Well, His Holiness is here, yes, looks okay. But how long are we going to remain united for the greater cause of freedom, of happiness, of preservation of unique Tibetan, rich Tibetan culture and religion? How long we are going to remain united, and how long are we going to persevere and protect this unique, rich cultural heritage? It's in our hand. It's in our hand, not in the hand of others. So, it's not only in the case of the situation of the Tibetans, it's true in the history or story of the whole humanity, you see. We are very good in complaining about what we don't have, but we are very bad in not doing what we can do. Okay? So that it can be used by sentient beings. From where will the resources come if they are not protected? See? I mean, look at the world resources. It's not protected. Everybody is using the resources. I mean, these teachings are, so profound. Now most of the countries, they are saying what they call as economic depression. Economic depression. That was bound to come because you were right from the beginning using wrong system. Every country was thinking about what you call as GDP, no, GNP. What is GDP or GNP? GDP. Every country expects increase in their GDP every year. Imagine. And that growth, increase of GDP every year, what is the sources? What is the source of those GDP growth? The GDP growth has to come from external material resources. I'm sorry about that. So the growth, increase of that GDP has to come from external natural resources. External natural resources have limitation. They're physical, they're material. So, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama very clearly says, that how can you make unlimited progress from limited resources? You can do it only by destroying the external material resources, which we are already doing. So you can see from where will the resources come if they are not protected. What is giving if it is unusable? That means if you not preserve it, not protect it, even if you give something, it will not be healthy, it will not be useful, you see. Like many of the products that is sold in the market today. They're not good for our health, you see. Therefore, for the sake of being used by sentient beings, protect one's body and so forth, which means resources, good deeds, by not giving up spiritual friends and by always studying the sutras. So in the case of this particular Buddhist practice, the Mahayana and Bodhisattvayana practice, you should, protecting one's body primarily means by not giving up spiritual friends, two things, by not giving up spiritual friends and by always studying the sutras. That means, as I explained yesterday also, protecting one's body, speech and mind, or protecting one's life means to remain in constant touch with good people, spiritual friend, who thinks in a healthy way, who does things in a healthy way, to remain in constant touch with good spiritual guidance, spiritual teacher. This is one way to sustain your faith. One of the causes for sustaining faith to the Buddha's teaching is to remain in constant touch with spiritual friends, good teachers. And good teacher, according to the Mahayana teaching, is one who should have many qualities, out of which at least that person should be somebody who has much more knowledge than you, of course, otherwise he can't teach. And then secondly, that person should have compassion for the students, for his followers. Out of the many qualities, I'm talking about 3 qualities, which is very, very essential. One is that he should have much more knowledge than you. And second, he should have compassion, so that when he gives the teaching, he gives the teaching with the sole motivation and benefit of benefiting you, nothing else. The teacher should not be somebody who gives a teaching expecting that, by doing so I will become very popular and famous. Or maybe if I give this teaching, people will come up with some offering, the stupid ways of thinking, So those should not be there. In the past, there are great teachers. One of the Kadamba teachers, he says, I've given so many teachings, but never, ever once expected even a thank you. You see? This is the mark of a great teacher. And the reason he says is, I have given so many teachings, but have never expected even a thank you, because there is no sentient being. There's no one single sentient being who is not suffering. You see? Now imagine somebody who is in a terrible situation. Let us say somebody had a tragic car accident and he's lying in a pool of blood, you are helping him. At that time, will you expect thank you from that person? Or some offering from that person? Of course not. Of course not. So if you are a good teacher, genuine teacher, you will be able to see and penetrate into each and everybody's problems and sufferings. Ordinarily they may look healthy, but they are overwhelmed by the negative emotions. They all have one or the other problems. Many of the sufferings they don't even recognize. Suffering, we have some understanding. Conditioned suffering, we have no understanding at all. Suffering of change, also we have no understanding. So when you see all this, that's why the cultivation of wisdom and knowledge is so useful in developing that strong compassion towards other sentient beings. And I can always remember when I was at one point sitting with His Holiness, and His Holiness was explaining about the importance of compassion and wisdom going together. And he was explaining that to somebody. I was translating, just one person. It's not a public teaching. So he was saying, look, like let us say there is an ant moving on this table, he said, looking for water. And now I, as a human being, can see that there is a water here, and the ant is here. And the ant comes all the way quite closer to that water and then goes back because he's unable to see it, you see, where the water actually is. So similarly, those who do not have the wisdom, they don't see it, that they are suffering. They don't see it. That's why we need to study, understand the reality. Study means not just getting indoctrinated by blind faith and things like that. Study means be aware, observe, understand the reality of human life, meaning of human life, what is happening in the world, what is being taught by Buddha. Think about it. And that's why most of us, the first step to Dharma practice is completely blocked already. So how can we do the Dharma practice? The first step to Dharma practice is renunciation, as we say in Buddhism. Renunciation means not to renounce everything and go. There is not the meaning. This word has been wrongly interpreted by many people. But renunciation at least means to see the limitation, the superficiality, the limitation of the worldly existence, the illusion like worldly existence, so that you are really able to penetrate into the layers and layers of possible difficulties and problems, sufferings, and thereby will be able to reduce attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth, and thereby there is a hope to see the limitation and sufferings within the samsara. But for the most of us, we talk about samsara is bad, samsara is suffering, and things like that. Just for the sake of talking, we do talk about it. But deep down, we are all saying, so far samsara is quite pleasant. That's why we are scared of death. Scared of death means we want to live more. Live where? In the samsara. You see? So therefore, the first teaching that the Buddha gave us on impermanence, the last teaching, one of the last teaching that he gave us also impermanence. And with that understanding of impermanence, meaning that you are going to die. When? Anytime. See? So if you are somebody who really thinks about it and meditate on it and who's some understanding, then at least you will make some attempt to prepare for that journey into the unknown land. And His Holiness suggests people by saying 50-50. That means 50, we can't expect everybody just remain completely committed to Buddhist practice, because we are ordinary people, we need to look after so many things. The presence of negative emotion is very strong. So therefore he advises 50-50. That means 50% you take care of this life, 50% you plan for the future lives. So there's the thing, you see. So what I was saying was, if you are somebody who really has this understanding of impermanent suffering, the overwhelming presence of suffering and problems among all sentient beings, then you should always expect that love and compassion. So therefore, when you give a teaching, you don't expect anything. I had given you that example. And instead you should be thankful to these people who are listening. Because these people listening, therefore it gave me an opportunity to read this text, prepare this text, explain this text. You give an opportunity to collect merit. It is not just me giving something to you, you are giving something to me in that sense. You see, it's all how you see things, how you understand things, you see. So, a qualified spiritual teacher should be somebody who has more knowledge than you, who has most importantly, compassion to the suffering sentient beings. And thirdly, he should be somebody who is not easily tired while teaching others, while making effort to others. Okay? Because otherwise he might easily get tired, thinking, oh, now enough, just stop it, I'm tired. Therefore, for the sake of being used by sentient beings, protect one's body. The way of protecting one's body means gaining knowledge. By gaining knowledge, you will be able to understand the preciousness of your human life. If you understand the preciousness of your human life, then you will not mistreat your body, mistreat your human life. See? And when we don't understand this, then you play with your life. You take drugs, you smoke, and you do all kind of stupid, negative things and destroy your life because you have not understood the preciousness of human life. And this human life is so precious because of this great human intelligence, which no other animals, no other sentient beings have that intelligence. But this intelligence has to survive within this physical body, within this human brain. So therefore it becomes equally important to take care of your health as a whole. Not just taking care of health doesn't just mean washing your body and putting some cosmetics on the face, but the real health, taking care of health here means that all your internal organs should be functioning well. And how would you take care of it? By being very careful about what you think, by being very careful about what you eat, how much rest you take. All these things you need to take care. Much of the problem of diseases, physical and mental diseases we are suffering today, are because of lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. Last year in November, I was giving series of talks in the Tibetan army. So I had this opportunity to meet all these Tibetan boys and girls with, smart army uniform. Obviously, physically, of course, they are much, much more agile and fit than me, of course. But when I was giving talk, I told them, okay, you all look very smart. You're doing a lot of physical exercises, but you must realize that the engine is inside, not outside. I told them. So if you don't take care of the engine, if you take drugs, if you smoke, then these little pipes in your lung that's used for breathing gets blocked. That's it. That's the end of the story. You see? And how would you take care of these internal organs? It's very much related to your mental perspective. You see? So you can do a lot of things just to take care of yourself, to take care of others. Therefore, it is important to rely on a spiritual friend and to be in constant touch with a good spiritual friend. And by always studying the sutras. Sutras means the teachings of the Buddha. Buddha is our teacher. And we may not be able to relate to him physically, but just like as if he is alive, all his teachings are here. Now for the Tibetans, we have 108 volumes of the Buddha's teaching, 108 volumes of the Buddha's teaching, and 225 volumes of commentaries of those sutras by great Indian scholars like Shantideva, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and so on. We are very, very lucky. But how many of us are able to read those things? And in fact, we have this very poor tendency, thinking that it is not proper for me to open these texts of Sutra and Tantra wrapped in cloth, you see. So we should make it a habit to open some of this and read. In the beginning you may not be able to understand it, but slowly you will get familiar with those texts. And then you get direct contact with the Buddha's teaching, not just relying on some smaller commentaries. It's very important. So I'm slowly planning, in the library also I'm planning that maybe on some holidays, if there are 3-4 days holiday, maybe then I will invite, of course on a voluntary basis, those who want to read, please come here and read Kanjur Tenjur, just for half an hour or 1 hour. So that way you become familiar with these teachings, you see. So if you don't make some effort, and if you continue with the same thinking that, okay, this text must remain on the altar, they're only for offerings and prostrations. We need to see these scriptures as just nothing, but they're just books, So books are for reading, not for display. So if you read this, then you will be able to understand all the vows, precepts, and the importance of these practices. It is by not giving up spiritual friends and by studying the sutras that we can uphold the sublime dharma, because upholding the sublime dharma can be done through understanding and through practice. And you cannot practice if you don't have the understanding. And you will not get the proper understanding if you don't read the sutras, if you don't rely on qualified teachers. And it's through upholding the sublime dharma that we can fulfill the practices of protection and so forth. So the purpose of all this dharma practice, or upholding the dharma, is to benefit sentient beings. to undertake this 12-fold practices that we had already discussed. And the purpose of this undertaking this 12-fold practice is to benefit suffering sentient beings. As simple as that. As simple as that. So in the case of our younger Tibetan generation, I think you should, out of this many volumes of sutras and tantras or shastras or commentaries, you should at least in your room keep one text of the Buddha's teaching. Maybe Heart Sutra or something. These are traditions, very important traditions that Tibetans had before. Now gradually they're disappearing, you see. Now people keep so many other things. Last year, September, when I was giving series of teachings in Russia, when I was giving this teaching in Tuva, which is a Buddhist republic. Now they are trying to revive they are from Tuva, these two. So there I was saying that you should buy and keep some of these sacred Kanjur Tenjur in your home, you see. Now these days, when it comes to buying a Kanjur Tenjur, they might say, wow, very expensive. But when it comes to buying a color television, I told them, then there was one monk, he said, Geshe, you hit hard, That's what I felt myself, When I was in need of some Kanjur Tenjur, first I thought expensive, then I said, shame on you. When it comes to buying something like color television, you don't hesitate, You just give the money and bring, you see. When it comes to buying such a precious text, you hesitate, oh, it's expensive, I may not be able to read it. You come up with all these excuses, you see, clearly showing that you are not interested, you see. So it is important to revive this tradition. Any questions? We have 5 minutes. Any questions? No question? No question? No answer? Guarding, okay, then I'll read. Guarding propounders of Dharma, that means teacher and so on. What is the meaning of protecting the body? It is giving up that which is harmful. Very simple. Protecting the body doesn't mean that you fortify the house, This is what we do in big cities, It's in places like Moscow. Once I was staying in a friend, several years back, friend's house. It had 2-3 doors, huge ones. And then plus security camera, spy camera. So there is not protecting the body in the true sense of the term. Protecting the body means giving up that which is harmful. Just as those who abide in upholding the Dharma would not harm others, similarly we should protect our body. So protecting one's own body is protecting others. If you want to, there is a teaching which says if you want to protect others, protect yourself first. If you want to show compassion to others, you should have compassion. You see. Okay. Similarly, we should protect our body. This means that we should practice protecting our body by guarding the 3 gateways: body, speech, mind, through which fresh moral corruptions occurs. So make sure that you do not commit new or fresh moral corruptions or wrongdoings. Protecting one's body is to abstain from those actions that would harm one's body in the future and to rely on factors that are beneficial in this life. This means to uphold the Dharma even at the cost of one's body and life, as is explained in the Arya Ganj Sutra, and to give up befriending those who would become a hindrance to upholding the Dharma, as is explained in the Sadam Pundarika Sutra. So as I said earlier, you need to remain more in touch with good people and not with bad people. Now, not To remain in touch with bad people doesn't mean that you should develop hatred and anger towards these bad people, but you are simply making sure that you are not influenced by these bad people. It's very, very easy to be influenced by negative ways of life and negative ways of thinking. Okay? And it's quite difficult to be affected and influenced by good people. So it's important to constantly be in touch with good people. Okay, we stop here and enjoy 3 days holiday. We'll meet on 8th January. When I recite this verse, you can mentally join with me. This prayer is from Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara. May those with fear be fearless. May those under bondage be freed. May those powerless be empowered. May our hearts join in friendship. Thank you.